Hello everybody, I'm Ben Choi, also known as Space Meat. You may have seen me around different cons as the guy in the blue air assault armor, and a question I get asked a lot is, how do you build this armor? So, this video is going to give you a general overview from start to finish of how to build foam armor. And in future videos, I'm going to go a little more in-depth at the various stages and just show you some of the tips and tricks I've learned over the years. So I guess let's get started. First things first, you should probably head over to 405th.com. Or if you happen to be in the Pacific region, visit 405th Pacific, our own little regional area. Now, I did not make that for the video, in case you're wondering. We have that at tables and cons and stuff like that. But at 405th.com, you will find, different tutorials, build threads, and resources and files, which you will definitely need for this. Build threads are very helpful because people like to document what they've done from start to finish. Two very useful ones to look at are the ones from Roxy Roo and Little Tyrant. If you'd like to take a look at them, I've linked them in the description. You can also take a look at my own terrible meandering build thread in case you're tired of this terrible meandering video. I'm going to meander a little bit more. But good place to start and read up on that. But back here. So I'm going to take you through the different stages from start to finish. I'm going to just give you a little rundown of what you're supposed to do in each stage and some of the supplies you need. So the very first stage is Pepakura. Now, I guess let me rewind a little bit before I get back to Pepakura. There are two types of armor that are prevalent these days. One is cardstock and resin, and the other is foam. Let me get you a hunk of foam here. Nope. There we go. Foam. Now, I have built armor out of foam and resin, and both. And my personal preference is foam, and I'll give you a few reasons why. With cardstock and resin, it takes longer because you have to assemble these tiny little pieces, and then the thing that you spend forever on is the hardening stage where you harden it with resin, then you put Bondo, and then you sand it smooth. Oh, but there's imperfections. More Bondo. Sand it again. Oh, I messed up here. Oh, sand it again. Sand it again. Sand it again. It takes forever. And on top of that, I find that fiberglass resin armor is, solid, so, you lose a lot of flexibility. It's kind of heavy and retains heat a lot more. And, if you're going to a convention, that kind of is pretty important. And I find that in foam armor, as I'm able to run, jump, sit, do things I would never dare do in fiberglass. And on top of that, I find foam assembly to be a little more, simple, and what you see is what you get, and it's a lot faster. So, back to Pepakura. Pepakura is a Japanese program where it takes a 3D model, like this here, my air assault helmet, see, and disassembles all the various faces into a nice sheet that you can print out and cut and assemble. Now, both the foam and fiberglass armor both derive from Pepakura patterns, or if you are really a foam god, or a armor making god, you can just do this freehand. But for those of us that are artistically challenged, like me, I prefer Pepakura. So download these from 405th.com, look through different threads, thank those modelers, because, without them we'd not have these. And, obviously, one, you need the Pepakura program. To run Pepakura, you will need Windows, not Mac. It only works on Windows. You'll also need a printer so you can print out your patterns. And let me see here. So I'm going to show you some here. This is a cardstock one. So these are the patterns for my helmet. So you can see here. I think, see, it used to be this piece here. You will need that. So that's the Pepakura stage. Next stage is assembly. At that point, for foam, at the very least, you will need foam, which was kind of a given. You also need a cutting implement. A lot of people like to use X-Acto knives, and they go through a lot of blades. My personal preference is a hot knife. This is a soldering iron with a hot knife attachment. You can find these in Amazon or Home Depot. Well, I don't think they really sell them in Home Depot anymore, but you can check around. I like these a lot better because they allow for smoother, faster cuts. You actually don't go through blades. This is the same blade I started with, and I've been using this knife for 2 years now. And you'll also need a straight edge. This is very integral to cutting like nice, smooth things, which I'll show you in a future video. And you'll also need, well, a Sharpie, because in this stage, you take your Pepakura patterns, which you've cut out, and then you put them here on the foam, and you trace them out. Once you've traced them out, ta-da, you can cut them. You cut them out with your hot knife, or whatever knife you feel like, and then you assemble them using hot glue. And do not be stingy on hot glue. I've learned this over the years. Lots of hot glue helps. Hot glue is cheap. Don't be stingy. Or if you want to be a total cheater like me and bypass all of these, you can feed all of this into a laser cutter, which, you know, done. Just cuts it out almost instantly. That is the assembly stage. So after assembly, you will have to move on to sealing, because there's lots of little seams and stuff like that, and you need to seal the foam surface so you can paint it. To seal seams, you'll want, I use, some people use hot glue and other stuff like that. I use drywall spackle, which you allow to fill into the seams. This one is Patch and Paint. This is the Home Depot brand. I find it the easiest. It's lightweight and easy to sand, which is also what you'll need, sandpaper. And, you know, this is a pretty fast step. And then you'll move on to sealing all your armor. And what you need first is a respirator. I'm not kidding. Respirator, gloves, and of course, safety goggles. Protect those eyes, because you need to protect yourself from Plastidip, which is basically a liquid rubber suspended in a solvent. It comes in the dip variety or the spray variety. My personal preference is to use the dip, because I can brush on several layers and keep it smooth. Plus, I think per dollar, you're wasting less of the Plastidip than a spray. But you know, it takes longer. If you want to be fast, I guess you can use the spray. If you are going to go the brush-on route, you will probably want industrial coating maintenance thinner. This is just a solvent. They actually make a specialized Plastidip solvent, but I cannot find it, so this will do in a pinch. Of course, you'll also need something to apply it, so foam brush. And so after you have sealed your armor with Plastidip or equivalent, the next thing you want to do is paint. Which, you know, I don't really have to be very specific about paint, but you want primer. I use magnetic primer. You don't have to. I just do it because it's fun to stick magnets to stuff. And then you want paint. A lot of people use spray paint. I use house paint because, well, I'm slow, I'm lame, and I'm very picky about my colors. You know, I tried to match cobalt, not cat's blue, as everyone thinks. Cobalt, Halo 1 through 4. Cobalt. And then you get to paint your armor. After painting, you will then want to mount your armor on you because you need to wear it. At that point, it's useful to have nylon straps and center release buckles. Now, at that point, there's a few optional bits of equipment that you may find useful that I love. In this case, at the assembly stage, you'll probably want a heat gun. Now, not absolutely necessary, but this is good for making curves, such as this shin here, as you can see, or shin thigh, as you can see, it's nice and curved. Now, you can obviously bend foam by hand, but if you heat it up with a heat gun and bend it, it'll stay in that shape more easily, and I find this very, very helpful. And don't think of using a hairdryer, because they will not put out the same amount of heat as a heat gun, and I did try the hairdryer. It took me 20 minutes, and I could not blend it or bend it as well as a heat gun, so just go to Harbor Freight, spend the $14, get a heat gun. Also, if you want to be more fancy in the end, you can try lights. My personal preference are to use battery-powered Christmas lights. So here's one from Target. I tend to order them from Amazon. So, you know, here's the Amazon variety. You know, it's nice single-stranded lights with a battery pack. Makes it simple for those of us who are not electronics engineers and want to calculate voltage. You know, here it is, pre-wired. Let me see. Another material you also need, which, let me grab it. for helmets in particular are motorcycle shields. You can just go to any kind of motorcycle supply shop. They'll have tons of replacement ones, so I just go look around, find the one that fits, cut it to shape, and stick it in there. Let me see here, and I think that basically covers, you know, the basic steps from start to finish of making armor. In future videos, I'm going to go a little more in depth. The next one's probably going to be sizing Pepakura or just, you know, building armor. So just keep watching. If you have any questions, you know, feel free to, I guess, leave in a comment, or you can message me at my Facebook costuming page, which I'll also put a link to, and I'll be glad to answer and help in any way I can. So thanks for watching.